Hey folks, Troy Dooley, the Beachside CEO, and I do hope that on this Easter weekend that you are having just a phenomenal time, time to relax. I know not everyone out there shares the same spiritual belief, shares the same type of religious experience maybe that I do. But I think that every one of us has had a life where Easter has played a part. Easter's been part of our family ritual, part of our family heritage, whatever it's called. And as I was preparing for this weekend, knowing that we're going through just a time of uncertainty, it caused me to just ponder, just to take some time and really think through where has life gone over, in my case, 56 years. What have we gone through during those time periods? And I was jotting down some stuff, listening to a lot of online pastors this week, and I just wanted to take some notes because I knew I wanted to do the weekend somewhat different. I mean, we've covered a lot of stuff over the last week, especially. We've seen numbers rise and fall. We see people get fearful, and people, think. In one hand, they get scared to death. The other hand says it's nothing to worry about, and somewhere in the middle probably is the truth. So as I started looking across the board at stuff, I started to see things. I started to see people who were being incongruent with their own, for lack of a better word, their own rhetoric that they were putting out on the internet. At one moment, they were saying we need to love folks. We need to be tolerant. We need to give space. And then I'd watch as they would comment in different threads, sometimes mine, sometimes other people, and they just were spewing the most hateful, intolerant type of comments, calling people names. Sometimes those names were very small. Sometimes they were very large. Most of the time, you could tell they were spewing things that they'd either read or heard, or very few people really, I think, on social media share their true feelings. Now, don't get me wrong, it kind of looks that way sometimes, but most people won't share their feelings. They get very defensive, so they put that defensiveness out there. And as I was reading through these comments, it once again brought up the one word that most people feel in one facet or the other, and it's a word that is manifested in each individual differently, and that is fear. And fear is something that we've covered over the last few weeks, but fear is something that's not going away. Fear is something that causes your heart to beat. Sometimes, especially with alpha males, I'll tell you, I can speak from that side of it. They show strength, they show tenacity, fortitude, confidence, and then they go to sleep. And all of that fear, be it subconsciously, be it that they've just had it pent up inside, comes out in dreams, in nightmares, in storylines that allow them to wake up the next morning, sometimes in what we will call they got out of the wrong side of the bed. I think women do the same thing. I think women will attack sometimes, and I only say this because I have a wife and 5 daughters and a couple of granddaughters. So you start to learn some things. You start to see how fear manifests itself in different people. So as I was looking here it caused me to go back to the very first Easter. And I know, look, some of you guys don't believe in Jesus. You don't believe in the Easter message. It's easier to believe in the Easter bunny than this. So I get it. Hey, y'all can check out if you want to. But I'm just talking in some practical terms based on the Easter story that we know from a Christian standpoint. It goes along with Passover too, but this here, actually we'll use Passover too, because some of you guys are Jewish, and I think this works. When the angel of death is coming, people get fearful. And right now we have going across, and I'm using this symbolically. I'm not saying there's an angel of death wiping out people with the coronavirus. What I'm saying is right now there's this spirit of death that we see. It's a spirit of fear that we feel because we don't know. It's an uncertainty time that's there. So I went back and I looked at the fact that at Passover, Moses said for the folks, if you want the angel of death to pass over you, you need to slay a lamb and put that blood on your door frame. At Easter, we celebrate Easter on the Christian side when Jesus was crucified, which was yesterday, Good Friday. And when you get to the part where Jesus left the upper room, they just had the Last Supper. Jewish people will do this usually on Wednesday. It's the meal for Passover. When they left that, they went to the Garden of Gethsemane, which sits underneath the Mount of Olives. And that's I could do a whole nother teaching on just the Mount of Olives. But here he is praying. He had his three closest men that were with him at the time. And they were supposed to be praying with him. And just like all good old boys, they went to sleep. I mean, you have a good meal, you drink some wine, you get tired when you're out there in the middle of nowhere and your boss is praying. And that's literally what happened. They crashed. But Jesus was praying at the time. Scared to death? No. But because he was human, he did have the fear of what was coming. And the anxiety inside of him, the pressure of what he was about to face, caused his capillaries to break and he sweat blood. He didn't back away. He just kept going. And as I was looking at that, it brought up it's actually a Latin phrase. I'll screw this up, but I want to use this. The Latin phrase is si vis pacem parabellum, which basically means you prepare for war. If you want peace, you prepare for war. So if you want peace, you prepare for war. So here's Christ praying, is there any way that this cup can pass from me? Is there any other way that we can do this? I'm prepared to do exactly what I have to do in order to make this happen. But I'd rather do something else. And as I was looking at that, and I was looking at what was being written across Facebook, across social media, LinkedIn, I mean, I've been all over the place this week. It caused me to realize fear it can be a paralyzing emotion. Fear is not something that we admit. Nobody wants to admit fear because we got a bunch of jackasses on the internet that want to tell us, well, fear is false evidence appearing real. Fear is made up. Fear is not, it's just you can control your emotions. Science shows us that the brain cannot differentiate fantasy from reality. So when we are fearful of something, such as an unknown enemy called coronavirus, that is a legit reality. When we see people dying from an unknown enemy that we can't see, that causes a new type of fear, because now inside of us, we can sometimes get anxiety and say, do I go around those people? Do I not go around those people? Do I protect my grandkid? See, and then when we start writing, those fears come out. Not necessarily our true self, just our true self when we're under fear. So as I was looking at everything that was written, it made me realize Not only did Jesus have some fear, but then when it was time for him to be taken to the cross, Peter, who was one of his disciples, in what some people would say, well, Troy, that was courageous. He went and pulled his knife and cut off the ear of the soldier. Now, that was actually stupid. He had one knife. Here's this whole band of soldiers. The end result would not have been pretty. And yet, I believe it was out of his fear. Fear for his Savior, fear for his master, whatever you want. Fear comes out in different ways. So when we're out there preaching tolerance, when we're out there preaching love, whether you're a Christian, whether you're an atheist, whether you're gay, straight, you don't know what you are, I don't care what it is, we need to make sure that our words line up truly with our actions. We need to make sure that if we're saying we need to love people, we need to be tolerant of people, that's the words that we're putting out there. That we're not dividing over things. If you have a different worldview about politics, about Jesus, about the coronavirus, about marriage, about sex, I mean, the list could go on and on. If you have a different worldview, that doesn't mean that someone else's worldview needs to be blasted. Now, I understand about sin. I understand about all that. That's not what I'm saying is, if you're out there trying to get your message across, whatever that message is, beating other people up doing it in social media is not conducive to what you're trying to accomplish at all. And making personal jabs at people, calling them fools, calling them worse names than that, just because they don't agree with you, just because your fear, whether you want to admit it or not, and most of the time, denial is what everyone is in. So just because you don't want to admit your fear, just because you don't want to tell the world, look, I'm scared to death because I have underlying health issues that could cause me to die. You need to stay at home. You need to stay away from me. This is big. Just because you say, look, I don't believe anything the government says. Look, I'm a firm believer. I didn't trust politicians before the pandemic. I don't trust politicians during the pandemic. I'm probably not going to trust politicians coming out the other side of the pandemic. But I trust Americans. And I do believe that there's a time when politicians put their political aside and they say, we got to do what's best for our family, for our neighbors, for our friends, because that's just the way America has been. Guess what? I believe the same thing in Italy, in Spain, in France, in the UK, even in China. I honestly don't believe that the ideologues that are running China want their families to die. So I don't know the truth about the coronavirus all the way across the board. Here's what I do know. I married into a medical family. My mother-in-law for 30 years was a lab technician. She ran the lab in the last 15 years or so of her career. I know a little bit about viruses. And beyond popular belief, I've been washing my hands for a long time because my wife wouldn't hold my hand, didn't want to kiss me, didn't want to do anything else unless I brushed my teeth, gargled, washed my hands, took a bath, took a shower. So some of this isn't new stuff. Some of this is just straight up regular stuff that we all needed to be doing, and we got away from it. Here's the other thing y'all need to know. Most of us have less viruses today, less everything else, because we've been sitting inside the house, which is beyond popular belief, is not reality. Inside of your home is a bunch of fake crap. You hear fake noises. You have fake air coming out of your air conditioner. You have all kinds of fake noise and light coming off of your light bulbs and your TVs and all this crap, instead of getting out in the dirt, getting out in the sun, getting out in the fresh air, getting stuff, okay? So fear rules us even when we don't admit it and don't even realize it. So again, it goes back to tolerance. I'm not going to, hit this any further. I really wanted to touch on that because we all have fear in one way or another. And the person that says, I do not have fear, is in denial. Chris Kyle, who is the number one sniper in the history of the military, phenomenal individual. And when you study his life and you study his military tactics and you study everything about him, he will also tell you, if I didn't have a little bit of fear, I would have been off edge. Fear helps keep us focused on where we want to go. One of my mentors, Art Williams, always said, Troy, you got to get up just a little bit scared every day, because that's going to keep you focused on what you need to focus on. So don't think that fear necessarily is a bad thing. What happens is you need to be able to understand that fear can't control you. You have to move through it. You've got to pass through it. That's the key there. Number two, what I wanted to get into, because we're not going to cover any news. This isn't a time for news this weekend. I'm just going to share from my heart. I've been listening. One of my dear mentors, my pastor Yuri turned me on to this guy a 3 years ago. His name's Robert Morse, founding senior pastor over at Gateway Church out of Dallas. And he touched on something this weekend that I'd never looked at it like this. And I thought, man, this is just great, no matter who a person is, no matter what a person is. And after I share what I've called the 7 immutable laws of Easter, I'm going to share a little bit of why I actually believe in Easter. Because sometimes we just see a person with the persona that they portray. My daughters and my wife are constantly getting me on this, because they say, man, people don't know what a teddy bear you are. They don't understand your beta male side. My 2 oldest daughters have been trying to figure out these, what's this new thing? Enneagrams, whatever they're called. Dad, you're a 2, you're a 3, you're a 7. It's like, it sounds like I'm with Brett Matheny in Vegas and he's rolling dice. It's like, look, I don't know. But I do know this. These 7 immutable laws, these 7 truths, these aren't really like spiritual things. These are just, as Robert was talking and I'm writing down, I thought, man, this truly is symbolic of what Easter is about. This is, in my heart, my mind, why Jesus died on the cross, was buried, rose again, and ascended into heaven. So I'm just going to share this. Number 1, his death on the cross gave us total forgiveness. He literally says, and it's in the Bible, Father, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. In other words, we're just freaking clueless. And honestly, they were nailing him on a cross, and that's true. How many times do we go through life? Look, there's a difference between making a mistake and sin. Okay, we all make mistakes. That's part of life. That's not going to send you to hell. That's not going to have near the ramifications or the consequences that a sin can have. And those sins, we call them the vices of the world. Alcoholism, a gambling addiction, a sex addiction, sex out of marriage causes women to get pregnant, and then both sides, now a guy's career might be over, a woman's career's, all these different sins that are out there. Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Total forgiveness on the cross. Number 2, when you believe in Jesus Christ as the Lord and Savior of the world, then you have immediate paradise when you die. Matter of fact, I will go as far as say Christians don't really die. They go from here to heaven. Boom, boom. I mean, that's it. And some hospice nurses will literally tell you that on a person's deathbed, sometimes they will wake up and literally put their hands out like this, and they believe, not all of them, but some of them believe they can see the angels coming to take them to heaven. I don't know, if not died, can't tell you that, but I do believe in immediate paradise. Number 3, we are never forsaken. The reason that my fears inside are different than maybe other people's, I don't fear an unknown virus personally. What I do fear is for my wife, for my kids, for my family. So my prayers aren't all just about me. It is, Lord, Father, please let this what parasite, this virus, this plague, pass over my family. Protect us. That's what I pray. Protect my pastor, protect my friends. You know, my pastor taught me, Troy, just stretch your hand out and pray for the east, west, north, and south. And I do. Lord, I don't know what's all going on. This is Mother Nature at its worst right now. And I pray because, you know, I guess I could pray, hey, this is the Chinese at their worst, or this is biological warfare at its worst. I don't care how you pray, whatever you believe. I'm just saying I believe prayer works. Unite714.org is a worldwide website where people gather at 7:14 in the morning and 7:14 at night, and they all say the same prayer, and they're praying for the world. I believe we pray for the world. Enemies, allies, doesn't matter. We're all humans right now, man. This has nothing to do with a political ideology. Nothing. It isn't about the economy. Well, a little bit about the economy. Right now, it's just about humans. That's what it is. So number 4, constant care. You know, on the cross here, if you don't know the story, and it's a pretty interesting story, go watch The Passion of Christ. If you don't want to pick up your Bible and read it, I'm good with that. Don't worry about that. Just go watch The Passion of Christ. But on the cross, here's Jesus is dying. His mother Mary, like all good mother, are at the bottom of the cross crying. Sadly, seeing her son as a man, buck naked, whipped, bloody, sides pierced. He looks down at his best friend, who was John, and literally says, John, take care of my mother. And tells his mother, Mary, go with John. And to me, that was symbolic. I mean, when Robert talked about this, it's like, man, I'd never looked at that like that before. But that was Jesus's way. That was the symbolic way of saying, you are going to have constant care. You can always come to me. I'm going to take care of you. In the midst of everything. Now, don't take my words wrong. It doesn't mean life is going to be a utopia. It doesn't mean that an unforeseen enemy isn't going to pop forth like it has now. It means that you're going to have constant care. You're not going to be forsaken. That's the key. Number 7, full atonement. Jesus said, did I say number 7? Number 5. Jesus said full atonement. He did it all on the cross. There's no good works. There's no sacraments. There's nothing that's going to do anything else than what Jesus did if you honestly believe that his dying on the cross, his resurrection, his ascension into heaven took care of it. If you know the story, the curtain that separated the temple, Holy of Holy, from just where the common folks like all of us would hang out. Not, you know, the priests were behind the curtain, we're in front of the curtain. We have no clue. It's kind of like politics. You don't know what's going on in the command center. That curtain was ripped in two so that we had full access to God. The reason that is because Jesus took all of the sins on his shoulder. I honestly believe, and Robert reiterated this to me, Jesus didn't accept a normal drink. But then when they gave him the nasty wine, the sour wine, I think it had some vinegar mixed into it, he drank that. And I think that was also symbolic of, he took all of the sins on. He took all of the crap that we could do. And by ripping that curtain, he brought in an era of grace. You guys know, if you follow me at all, that on my right hand it says, act justly, walk humbly, love mercy. Mercy. What Christ did on the cross was so that we could have mercy from God's wrath. A lot of times people out here, especially during pandemics, well, this is God getting even with people for their sins. That's such an asinine statement. That goes to show me that whatever Bible they're reading, they don't understand it at all. And even in the Bible, it says, if you don't believe, these mysteries will continue to be gone to you. You won't be able to see them. You won't be able to understand them. You won't know the answers to them. And I believe that's what happens. People want to use the Bible just like they want to use anything else. Okay? They'll use the Bible to beat you over the head, tell you what an ass you are, tell you you're going to hell, but then they'll turn it around and they'll get what they want from it too. So they try to put the guilt on you. And I just hate that, okay? I believe the Bible's a living word. I believe if you read it and you say, man, God, I don't even know who the heck you are. I don't have a clue if this is legit. You'll read it, and he will give you some stuff that you can see in there. So we get full atonement. There is nothing else we can do. Jesus did it all. Number 6, it's completely finished. He says, it is finished. In Greek, and some of you, Troy, how do you know about all that? Okay, I actually am a pastor. I've studied this my whole life. The Greek word used for finished is a business term. It's used in transactions, meaning we're done. We've done it all. It's over. There's nothing else that can be done. It is finished. Jesus did it all. There is nothing else you can do. Look, I'm not knocking any of my Catholic friends. I really love tradition. Peter was the founder of the Catholic Church. Catholic means one church. But it doesn't matter how many Hail Marys I do. It doesn't matter how many confessions I have. Jesus did it all. And I don't want to just pick on Catholics. It can be Greek Orthodox. It can be the Assembly of Gods. Doesn't matter how many times you go down front. Jesus, please forgive me. Look, it is done. If you've done it once, you've done it now. And I'm not saying don't take my words out of context. I still say, Lord, I screwed up today. I shouldn't have said that about so-and-so. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have. We all have I shouldn't haves. So I go to the Lord and say, man, help me, guide me, do. That's the name of the game. But it is finished. Jesus did it. The rest of it is history. And number 7, an eternal commitment, meaning that God's given us his eternal commitment by his son's sacrificial death on a cross. Jesus didn't do anything. There's no written evidence. You can and blow the Bible off. Go read the Jewish philosophers of the time, Josephus, Philo, any of these guys, and you actually see that they even write there was no evidence of anything Jesus had done to break the laws. And yet he was the sacrificial lamb. So those are the 7, what I call the immutable laws, immutable truths of what Easter means out there. You can go watch Robert Morse's deal, man. He just nailed this far better than I did. I'm just taking notes as he was going. But I think it's important. I think it's important that we understand that even though we have these fears, we don't understand everything that's going on. That parabellum, if you want peace, you have to prepare for war. And right now, whether you guys realize it or not, that's exactly what's going on worldwide. People who want peace are preparing for war. Not the physical war like we all see on TV. But whether it's in the United States with the most sophisticated labs and the most specialized virus experts out there digging in for a vaccine, looking for antibodies, checking out blood plasma, looking for faster tests. That's people who are preparing for war because they want peace, because they know viruses are cycled. They come in and they go out, just like it's flu season, it's hurricane season. In hurricanes, okay, we know that just about this time of the year, and there's been a couple of hurricanes out there already, that we go into parabellum. We are preparing for war while we pray for peace. We don't want hurricanes rolling in. A couple of years ago, we had one that wiped out Panama City, then went all the way across the United States and hit the East Coast where my daughter is. That's pretty powerful. Left tragedy all over the place. If you want peace, you prepare for war. We right now are doing that. You have to constantly, in your families, prepare for war. That means you're going to be washing your hands. You're going to, put your mask on, do whatever you want to do. All that good stuff. That's the key. A lot of people wonder sometimes, Troy, why do you believe in this Jesus thing? And understand, I grew up in a pretty strange family, and I'm going to close out with this. I'm just going to share a little bit of why I believe, my redemption story, if you will. My dad was the meanest and toughest guy I knew. My mom was a flaky person. She'd gone through a lot of trauma with a capital T in her childhood. It messed with her mind bad. During the late 60s, early 70s, ended up in a mental ward. A little legit. Back then, we had legit mental hospitals. They were not just a ward in a normal hospital. These were mental institutions back then, and so it was really funky. My dad was part of an organized crime family in Kansas City that was making a move to take over part of the city's organizations. They were making a move to take over the union up there. So there's a lot of violence, a lot of crap that was there, and so I grew up in a lot of that. The Jimmy Hoffa days, all kinds of weird stuff during those time periods. And understand, this is an age in my life where I'm 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That time period there where you're going into your really formative years of what violence means, what tolerance means, how do you treat women, all of this stuff. And it was coming out of that period, and it was I don't know when it was, 78, 79, somewhere around there, when my dad he got a phone call on a Saturday night from some good friends of his. Understand, in organized crime, not all the time is everybody who are friends in just one deal. You make lots of friends. And he got a phone call that said, "Hey, I know you guys have a meeting set up this evening over at the Virginia Tavern. Why don't you just stay home? Why don't you just not go?" And it wasn't that it was just a conversation. It was more or less somebody saying, "Don't show up." And you it's all in the history books. You can go see the ambush at the Virginia Tavern in Kansas City. It's gone now, but it was basically wiped out the majority of the guys that he was working with. My Uncle Mike was killed that night. It was interesting, but that was a shifting point to where we started going to church after that. My dad, the next morning, Mom said, "Hey, I'm going to church. Do you want to go?" He's out the door. And from that point on, we were in church. It didn't change my dad's business much in those early years. He was still working with some family, still working with the union. Went in and started working with the family who legitimately took over for the union, not just in Kansas City but worldwide. Part of if you want to go watch the movie Casino, that's basically the Kansas City organization ran the Vegas deal at that time, around all of that stuff. And that was how I grew up. So I grew up in some pretty strange stuff. Went to church every Sunday, went down and prayed, but it didn't do it. It wasn't anything. And as I grew into adulthood, one of the things I always wanted to do was prove to my dad that I was as mean and as tough as he was. Tough, maybe tougher. Mean, I just didn't have the mean streak my dad had. I'm going to tell you that right now. I've done some pretty asinine things in my life, and I've been pretty hurtful in my life, but I was nowhere close to what my dad could. My dad could cut you up one side and down the other with his words in ways that to this day still haunt me sometimes. So I don't think I've ever done that. I haven't done it with my daughters. I haven't done it with my wife. I've hurt them and I've had to ask forgiveness. But my dad did it out of meanness. My dad did it systematically. He would do that. Didn't matter who you were. And for a long time, I didn't understand why until he was close to death. when I realized that was his way, his fear. I talked about fear early on. That was his way of protecting himself. Because every time he had told somebody he loved them, I love you. His best friend died in a car wreck. His dad died. His mom died. He just stopped using I love you. And that, so he would put up these barriers so that he wouldn't get hurt first. That was just the way he was. I didn't understand it, like I said, until he died. But all through my life, grew up in church and did not change. I saw my dad not change for the most part, so I didn't change. He'd act one way on Sunday, and then he'd go do the rest of it on the weekday. And it's like, okay, cool. Until 1990. So all my life, I mean, my high school years, 1 foot at church, 1 foot out in the party world, doing crazy stuff, became a bounty hunter, strip clubs. I mean, you know, everything that can be bad was bad. That was me. And here I am, supposedly, you know, loving Jesus, supposedly married my high school sweetheart. I've got kids. I mean, everything's great. And in 1990, Paige got pregnant with Dalton. And it was just a crazy time. The bail bond business was going good. Money was flowing through the doors. Most of it was in cash. Criminals don't have credit cards for the most part. So, and my ego got out of check. I mean, we hit $1 million in net worth. I'm 1990, 20 something. It was bad. You know, our office building, we started with one office, ended up with 3 floors of an office building. I mean, life was great. And then it was like all hell broke loose. I got charged with assault with a deadly weapon with the intent to kill. I had 5 counts of political corruption that I was facing. I had attempted vehicular homicide. If you can't tell, I had an anger issue. No convictions on any of those, just to be clear. But it was a time period where it got so bad, Paige and I separated. And I'm in my office one night. And I had a very large office. I had a kitchenette in the office. But because our office was built on the side of a hill, we had a septic tank that was inside the kitchen, so that when rain came down the hill, the water table came up, it would pump the water out. And I'm sitting there making coffee, waiting for some people to show up to fill out paperwork. We're going to go get somebody out of jail. And that sump pump came on. And as it came on, I pulled the curtain back. And I looked down into that black, stinky, musty smelling hole. And it was like, man, that's where my life's at right now. And that's where I'm headed, is into a black freaking hole. You gotta understand, I was lonely. I didn't have Paige. We're in the middle of a separation where we both got attorneys. We're trying to figure out where the future's going to be. I'm putting up the defenses around me totally. I don't trust anybody. I have nobody to turn to. My dad and I were not speaking. I'd found out that he had done some stuff that was just uncool with me and the business. My little brother and I were not close. My mom, although just a phenomenal individual, it was a toxic relationship with her. So there was no one I could turn to except Jesus. And as I'm looking into that black hole, smelling all that crap, I just started to cry and thought, man, this isn't it. I married my childhood sweetheart. I love Paige. I love my kids. The business isn't necessarily worth it. If you're legit, Lord, I've grown up in church, but if you're legit, if you truly can forgive me, I'll give you my life. I'll give you my heart. I'll do everything I can. And listen, I've screwed it up so much since then, it's pathetic, okay? I am constantly, over the years, failing as a husband, as a dad, but it was that defining moment when I legitimately went on a path to say, I'm going to know in my heart that Jesus Christ is legit, that God did, because a lot of this is faith. I can't see God just like I can't see a virus. Think about this for a minute. You don't believe in God because you can't see him. And yet people tell you the evidence that he is real. But yet you'll turn on a freaking TV show, watch strangers that you have no clue who they are. For all you know, their whole back bio there is totally made up on the internet because the government wanted to have a conspiracy. Let's just go down this path for a minute. But yet you have enough faith to believe what's on CNN, Fox News, what's coming from the government, but you can't believe in Jesus Christ. You can't believe in God. Talk about incongruency in your thought process. But I was at a point where I knew I had to go. And I went on, I'd say a great book you can buy is The Case for Christ. It was written by an atheist who's now a pastor, but he was and still is an award-winning investigative reporter. And he really put some facts together for me because he went to people that didn't believe in Christ, didn't believe in God, and pinpointed some stuff, and it was amazing. But for me, that defining moment, when I'm looking down in that septic tank, when I'm smelling the smell, all I could think of is, I sure the hell don't want to go to hell. Those were my thoughts. And I made it a point from that point forward to make a shift. And like I said, and y'all have seen this, I love Disney. I love princess stories. I married a romance writer. But the myth that the man's going to ride in shining armor and a white horse, and that you're going to marry the princess, the virgin princess and all that, is BS. I'm about as tarnished and tattered and beat up as a knight as you can be. That's why we started the new brand that we have called the Tempered Knight, because I have been forged in battle. I have been in the middle of it. Those tattered princesses, they're look, and I'm using virgin in symbolic. I mean, there's a lot of beautiful virgin women out there that when they get married, I'm talking about we all come with baggage. And it took me a while to realize that. It took me it took Paige. She had me on a pedestal and I got knocked off bad. And then we started to have to really work together to become what we have 33 years later. But I knew that defining moment in 1990 when I said, okay, I'm going to go on this journey. And if everything that I've been told in church is legit, and all the hypocrites that told me that are irrelevant, then I'm going to go drive it home. I'm going to find out who this Jesus is. I'm going to find out if I can trust God. Because obviously I can't trust my dad. Think about this. How are we supposed to trust God the Father when our own relationship with our dad sucks so bad? It's easy if you've had a great relationship with your dad. Oh, my dad was great. God's going to be great. This is going to be lovey-dovey, kumbaya. I didn't have that. My dad beat me. He yelled at me, called me things that no kid should be called. My mom beat me, told me, all kinds of crap. And I love my parents, don't get me wrong. But I didn't want that relationship with God. And so the relationship I had with God was, man, if I did something wrong, he's going to get even with me. Every bad thing that ever happened to me had to be from God because I was bad. And then when I found out about grace, when I found out, hey, this is a legit deal here. This isn't about some religious deal. This is really about a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And you're going to screw up, but man, you got somebody that cares. That's what Easter means to me. And that's just a little bit of the bigger story. Some of you guys have seen me talk from stage and share deeper into things. Some of you have had we've done personal time together where we've done some pretty good masterminds, and I've shared more. But for this Easter, no matter where you're at, if you maybe you don't believe in the Jesus thing, maybe you don't believe in God, but like I said, it's easy for you to believe in a virus that you can't see. Take some time privately to just do some analyzation. Because if this God thing is legit, if God and Jesus is as legit as the virus is, then maybe it's time you take a harder look at your life. Maybe it's time that you say, okay, I'm gonna go on this personal journey. Because there's a lot of people out there that tell you they believe in God, they believe in Jesus. Beyond popular belief, the demons believe in Jesus. They believe in God. Satan believes in God and Jesus. Believing isn't where it's at. It's being willing to follow them. It's believing to commit your life and say, okay, I have no clue where I'm going, but I'm going to trust you that we're going to go there together. I get up every morning making my plans, but yet I let him direct my life because I can screw it up. I can screw it up with clients, and I don't want to do that. So y'all, have a great weekend. Have a great Easter. We'll be back on full schedule on Monday. I just wanted to do a little bit of something special from my heart on this Easter weekend before I head home to barbecue some prime rib and some brisket and make a few little things for the girls for tomorrow morning. So stay positive, stay strong, and protect yourself. We'll see you Monday.